a few minutes left here, so I would like to go to a couple of questions that I would like to start with Chuck. And Jordan, if you have anything you would like to add, anything you'd like to weigh in, please feel free to do so. But Chuck, is there any chance Congress will step in and put the brakes on all these new economic nexus requirements?
That's a good question. So, yes, it's possible. Congress retains the ability to use what's called their positive, to get all lawyerly about it, their positive Commerce Clause authority and enact a rule that supersedes the Supreme Court's Wayfair decision. In fact, for many, many years, a lot of states were hoping that Congress would enact the rules that effectively the Supreme Court did when they made their Wayfair decision, meaning they would exercise their positive authority to compel collection by remote sellers. Now there's some folks hoping that Congress will exercise their authority to limit this ability. And there are some bills that have been introduced and in the U.S. Congress. Those bills have largely gone nowhere, and of course they're kind of caught up in the gridlock that we see, really prevailing in the United States Congress today. That makes it challenging for any legislation to get passed, especially when it requires a level of bipartisan support. So, short answer is it's possible. The other short answer is that we're tracking these developments closely, but from what we can see, there's nothing right now with especially strong legs that would change this environment in the near term.
Thank you for that reply, Chuck. Jordan, is there anything you'd like to add, or let's say I have another question for Chuck?
Nope. Fire away.
All right, Chuck, then how about this one? Does every state that has an economic nexus or marketplace rule use the South Dakota threshold of $100,000 in gross sales or 200 transactions?
No. So I get what you're getting at there, and it's one of the things that makes compliance for sellers confusing, which of course makes AP automation all the more important and all the more relevant, is that there's no magic in those numbers. Now, South Dakota is a relatively sparsely populated state, and for them, it made some logical sense to impose a relatively low threshold because you're meaningfully connected to South Dakota if you sell $100,000 worth of sales or engage in 200 transactions. That meaningful connection, as it applies for South Dakota, may not apply the same way in California, may not apply the same way in New York, and in any other state. And what we've seen is that while there are all bunches of states that have enacted rules similar to South Dakota, based on that theory again that they have to collect tax to the maximum amount allowable under the law, other states have recognized that practically that's going to bring in too many small sellers for them that really would be challenged to comply. Like for example, into California, which is an enormously populated state, the center of one of our centers of commerce in the country. A rule like that would capture almost anybody that's doing business in California. And what they've done is they have a rule that says $500,000 in sales. And what we've seen over this short period of time is that states are really looking to find that sweet spot. What brings in meaningful revenue, but that doesn't cause the Department of Revenue to go berserk with challenging filings and bad information and overload their existing processes. So a lot of states have been tweaking their threshold standards to figure out what works best for them, what gets the maximum compliance with minimum headache. And in so doing, some states have gone away from that $100,000 and 200 transactions and have moved to higher sales thresholds above $100,000, and in some cases have lopped off entirely the number of transactions thresholds to really sort of fine tune what makes sense for them. And of course, sellers who are obligated to determine whether they fit within these thresholds have to track those things. Luckily, there are tools out there that allow companies to get a snapshot view of the rules prevailing across the entirety of the country.